Hi, I'm Starre, and welcome to the Starre podcast. With over 20 years of experience, I've had the privilege of working with thousands worldwide and sharing my expertise across various media platforms. This podcast is your go-to resource for mastering manifestation and unlocking your ultimate magnetism. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. And a very, very warm welcome back. Salarah here. I have to say today's episode feels really surreal. And the reason for that being is after years, and I mean years of writing and then rewriting and then deleting and then questioning myself and then scratching my head and then changing my mind and then rewriting again. Occasionally also wondering why on earth I ever thought writing a book was a good idea or at least going to be easy. The good news is my book, The Only Way Out is finally being released into the world. And it does feel weird. I feel quite emotional actually saying that, because for those of you who have been following my podcast for a little while, you'll know that this has been a long time in the making. This is actually the fourth manuscript. So I guess technically you could say that I've actually written 4 books. And this is the book that actually has made it out into the world. And I can't be any more proud of myself because I know what a challenge it has been to get it to this point. So I could spend this whole episode telling you about the book and, I don't know, promoting it and asking you to buy it and all of that shenanigans. But that doesn't really feel the reason why I want to tell you about it. What feels more aligned and way more meaningful is sharing some of the process of me writing and what it's taught me with the intention that it's going to help answer some of the questions you have about some of the challenges that you are going through in your life at the moment. So you may hear or feel yourself mirrored in my experience somehow. I have to say, this is what's really surprised me. Is I thought writing a book would be all about remembering my past. And don't get me wrong, that was a huge part of it. But what I didn't expect was how much that it would actually teach me about my present life. Because when you sit down and you write a book about your life, you can't help but revisit the different versions of yourself that you haven't even thought about in years. Whether it be, the little girl or multiple little girls, the teenager or the woman who's desperately tired and struggling and trying to find every method possible to help herself, the version of you that makes mistakes, multiple mistakes sometimes, the version that keeps repeating painful patterns multiple times, or the version of you who thought that you were doing the right thing, and then quite often you learnt that actually perhaps what you were doing was far from the right thing for you and for other people. And as I revisited these different versions of myself, something became incredibly clear. And that was that most of the things that were causing me suffering, they weren't actually what I thought they were. For years, I believed that the pain that I was experiencing was being caused by what was happening around me. And for complete transparency, I was in full-on victim mode and actually thinking it was everyone else's fault. Whether it was the relationship, the breakup, the feelings of abandonment or rejection, multiple situations involving money or lack of, family dynamics, friendships, you name it, all sorts of different circumstances, whatever it happened to be at the time. And whilst those experiences were really challenging and very painful, what I can see now with the benefit of hindsight is that these events themselves were very rarely the actual problem. The event was simply illuminating something that was already there for me, something that had happened when I was younger. Now, when we're younger, a lot of the things and the traumatic events that happen, it's not our fault. And I really want to make that super clear. It's not our fault. But as adults, if we're not living the life that brings us peace and freedom and love and abundance, then it absolutely is our responsibility to change it. And actually, that's a massive gift to ourselves to do that. And I often say to my clients, and you would have heard me say that multiple times too, is that life is a mirror. And by writing this book, it's forced me to really look at where my wound started, but also a lot of my old reflections through the circumstances that happened later on in my life. Because as I visited and revisited and I looked in fine detail at some of the decades, I noticed something. I noticed that even though the people changed, new groups of people would come in, old groups of people would go. So the people changed, the circumstances would change with them, and even sometimes the locations would change and some of the details would change, but certain feelings kept showing up. So even though it was different people in different circumstances, the feelings were the same. And for me, these were feelings of not being good enough, not being wanted, not being important, feelings of abandonment or fear of abandonment, feeling like I had to prove myself and prove my worth, feeling like I wasn't safe. And, that was actually a huge realization, because a lot of what drove a lot of my behavior was a lack of feeling of stability and safety in my nervous system. And one big realization through all of this was it meant that life wasn't actually randomly picking on me. And it can feel like that sometimes when things just seem to come at us like without much of a break in between. And it's hard not to feel that life isn't picking on us. But what it also meant was that there were underlying patterns and there were wounds underneath all of these situations. There were beliefs underneath it that were very subtly running the show for me, because I didn't know that I didn't know. I was just locked in this painful loop without even knowing that I didn't know. But when I started to connect the dots and understand that a lot of these situations and circumstances weren't random and they were here to show me something, that's when things really did begin to change. And I think many of us, and this is certainly in my experience and in my coaching practice, we try to change our outward reality. So we try to change the scenery, and we try to do that in so many different ways. It's quite exhausting, actually. And we don't actually realize that we're carrying the same suitcase from place to place, from person to person, from friendship to friendship, from different houses, different countries. And eventually, life gently sometimes, and other times not so gently, invites us to unpack what really is going on. And one of the biggest things about writing this book has taught me that healing isn't actually about fixing yourself. And I spent years thinking I was broken and trying to fix myself. I know that sounds a bit strange coming from someone who spent years or nearly 2 decades helping people transform their lives. I think many people enter personal development because deep down they believe that something is fundamentally wrong with them. I know I did. I thought that if I could learn enough, if I could heal enough, if I could understand enough, if I could change enough, if I could achieve enough, then one day I would finally become the person that I was supposed to be. Like one day I would actually arrive at this destination. I would arrive at this place of success and peace and love and abundance. And one day that I would actually be enough. One day I would actually start to feel worthy of good things, worthy of a good life, worthy of great friendships, worthy of abundance. And one day I'd stop feeling the way that I felt. And the trouble is, if your healing journey begins with a belief that you are broken, then every single step forward can accidentally reinforce the idea that there is actually something wrong with you. So the very pushing that we do to heal ourselves is reinforcing that we are unhealed, that we are broken in some way. And writing this book showed me something completely different. the most profound healing moments in my life, it didn't actually come from becoming someone else. And I tried, oh my word, like I was a bit of a chameleon in many respects. I thought if I was someone different, then I would be more acceptable, I'd be more lovable. What it actually came from was removing the layers that stopped me from being myself, because I was always myself at my core. But unfortunately, through hurts and pains and wounds compressed over time, it began to dim my light of my core, of my essential being. And it just filled and compressed me with fear, with conditioning, with protective mechanisms, like how I would protect myself when I'm hurt, how I would protect myself in case I thought I was going to be hurt, how I would protect myself if I thought there wasn't enough money. And all of these created new masks, created new survival strategies. And then it just created more stories, more illusions. It's quite exhausting, to be honest. And the goal was never to become more. The goal was to uncover what had always been there all along. And I think that's a really important distinction, because so many people listening to this podcast are incredibly hard on themselves. And I think that can create so many more problems on top of the problems that we're already trying to solve. Not being our best friend, not being our cheerleader, like putting ourselves down in our thoughts, or sometimes outwardly, and saying things about ourselves to ourselves or to people that creates an inner environment of conflict and mistrust. And if you're listening to this and you're relating to a lot of what I'm saying, it's probably because you already know a huge amount. It's probably because you've already done a lot of reading of the books, gone to seminars, done loads of courses, perhaps listening to loads of other podcasts, not been shy of journaling and self-reflection. The truth is, like many of us, we've tried. It's not through lack of trying. Yet there's always, or often rather, there's a voice asking, like, why am I not there yet? And then comparing ourselves to other people, like, how come they're there and I'm doing all this work and I'm not there? And then, of course, that starts another host of issues, the whole comparison game. And I'll invite you to perhaps ponder on that maybe you're not there because there is no there. Now, that's not trying to make you give up and go, oh my goodness, that's actually a really positive thing, so hear me out. Maybe the journey isn't about becoming someone else. Maybe it's about coming home to who you have always been. Beneath the patterns, beneath the hurt, beneath the programs. The you that's in there, underneath all of it, that has all this stuff compressed on top and layered on top of. And another thing that I noticed whilst I was writing this book, and this is actually really, really important, is how clever fear can actually be. We tend to think fear looks obvious. We imagine that it arrives like kind of shouting and waving its arms around. In reality, actually, fear is often incredibly sophisticated. It wears disguises, all kinds of disguises. So it dresses up logic. It disguises itself as practicality. It calls itself realism. It convinces us that we're being sensible. And looking back on my life, I can see countless moments where fear was making the decisions, pretending to be wisdom. I actually believed that it was wisdom, pretending to be intuition, and I actually believed it was intuition. Maybe not applying for that dream job because I might fail, or not speaking because I might be judged, and not asking because I might hear the word no, not trusting because I might get hurt, and not fully committing because if it didn't work, then at least I could tell myself that I never really tried, and that's the reason why. And one of the concepts I talk about a lot is preemptive striking, which I have done a huge amount of. And it's something that I've observed in myself and so many of my clients. It's that unconscious tendency to reject ourselves before life gets the opportunity to do that, to pull away before we can be abandoned, to sabotage something before we can fail, to convince ourselves that we don't really want the thing that we really want, because somehow that feels safer in our system. And what I've realized is that so much of what we call intuition or gut feeling is actually fear wearing a very, very convincing costume. And the question that served me more than almost any other is, am I moving towards something that my heart truly desires, or am I simply moving away from something that I fear? And the answer to that can be incredibly revealing. And perhaps the deepest lesson of all, though, is understanding how much our relationship with ourselves, it absolutely shapes everything. We're looking at the world through the lens of ourself, of how hurt, our pain, what we believe, how much we love ourselves, how much we respect ourselves, how much we trust ourselves. And this then is mirrored to us in our relationships. It's mirrored to us in our finances, in our health, in whether we can instill and uphold healthy boundaries. It's mirrored to us in our dreams, our ability to receive the good that life constantly wants to bring us. The universe always wants to bring us good from everyone and everywhere, in every shape and in every form. It's our ability to receive it. It's our ability to trust it. It's our ability to create opportunities. It's our ability to love. And for years, I thought that I was working on manifestation. I thought I was really good at the law of attraction. But what I was actually working on was my relationship with myself. Because if I don't trust myself, I'm going to struggle to trust life. If I don't value myself, I'm going to struggle to receive value from others. If I don't feel safe within, I spend my life searching for safety outside of myself, and it's exhausting. It wrung me out like a sponge. I was this dried old sponge by the end of it all, with nothing more to give. And the more I wrote, the more I realized that almost every chapter of my life ultimately came back to this relationship. Not the relationship with my partner, my friends, not the relationship with money, not the relationship with success, but the relationship with me. And perhaps that's why the title of the book became The Only Way Out is In. Because every time I tried to escape discomfort by changing something outside of myself, life actually led me inward. It led me back inside, back to the wound, back to the belief, back to the pattern, back to the story, back to the place where real transformation was waiting, not to feed it anymore, but to resolve it, because life wanted to free me. And maybe that's the final thing that I want to leave with you today. Some of the most painful moments of my life became some of my greatest teachers, because they forced me to meet the parts of myself that I might otherwise have spent a lifetime avoiding. And the woman I am today was not shaped only by these beautiful moments, and there have been many, but by also the difficult ones. Countless heartbreaks, countless mistakes, the losses, disappointment, sadness, the griefs, the uncertainty, the moments where life actually cracked me open and invited me to become something and someone more conscious. So if you're going through one of those seasons right now, I want you to know that whilst I would never, ever, ever minimize your pain, there may be wisdom trying to emerge from it. There may be a version of you being born through it. There may be something your soul is inviting you to see. And tomorrow, 9th of June, 2026, my book enters the world officially. And more than anything, my hope is that it helps you realize that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. And that your patterns, they absolutely make sense, and that healing is absolutely possible, and that the answers that you have spent so much of your life searching for outside of yourself may have been waiting quietly within you all along. And after everything life has taught me one truth, and it continues to stand above all, the only way out really is in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the world. I'll put a little link in the show notes so that you can purchase your copy of The Only Way Out Is In. I'm very, very excited for you to read it. And it is my heartfelt wish that I can save you some time, having overcome so much myself. If there's just one or two things that I can say in this book that will make a couple of things click into place for you, then that is my wish for you. Thank you for being here once again, and I look forward to being back with you the same time next week. Take care for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Salarah Starre podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit subscribe so that you never miss out. And you can stay connected with me on Instagram at Salarah Starre. And for even more inspiration and explore my courses and coaching at salarahstarre.com. You deserve to live a deeply connected and fulfilling life. And it's only you that can make it happen.